Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today is yet another video on my 2024 off-season prediction series. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if my members area is all set up, make sure to join that. We're going to have early access to videos and little perks and stuff like that along the way. That's only going to grow as this channel grows and as you guys chip into all that stuff. It's all so very much appreciated, not necessary at all. The thing I care about the most at the end of the day is that you hit the like button and that you comment and that you subscribe. All that member stuff, if you want to be called the day ones, acknowledge, tribal chief, join it. Join it. That would be so great. And there will be perks as it goes along the way, and it'll only get better as time goes on. Speaking of getting better as time goes on, is that true about the Pittsburgh Steelers who we're covering today? Is it true about Mike Tomlin, who is an all-timer, an all-time great head coach? Top 5 in the entire league right now, guaranteed. Has allowed disruptors into his locker room recently. And that, I think, has been what's dragged them down, to be quite honest with you. And we'll get to those disruptors. I've talked about it in mock drafts before, and I'm going to continue to rant and rave about it until at least one of them is gone. He's taken some really poor rosters and gotten more out of them than I think most coaches would. Never had a losing record as the Steelers head coach. I'm not sure he's ever come in last place in the division as a Steelers head coach. They didn't do it this year. I don't think they did the year before that either. I don't think they've ever been in last place. So how does he solve those issues? He's brought in a new offensive coordinator. Oh, excuse me. And he's got the ability to maintain a lot of the key players on the defense. I think he can go out and get guys who are positive for the locker room also. I think that they can create enough wiggle room to get veteran players who are going to be positive locker room contributors and really help get that culture back. You know, he inherited a culture from Chuck Noll and from Bill Cowher that he's been able to maintain really up until the last couple of years. So you imagine what happens if he can get that culture back to 100%, that this roster and this team can get back to being 10, 11, 12 wins a year, even in a really tough division. But there are some aspects of, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, that needs to be addressed, and we'll get to those rankings right now. So at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin, he is an all-timer, an all-time great coach. Gotta be at least in your top 5 at minimum of the current head coaches. No one has gotten more out of a roster consistently every year, and it's because of the culture that he carried over from Chuck Noll, from Bill Cowher. He maintained it. And that's why this year was so... It just seems like there's been disruptors allowed in the locker room. Like, they got rid of Antonio Brown for a reason. And those disruptors were really on the offensive side of the ball. They got rid of Matt Canada. They brought in... was it Arthur Smith that they brought in to be the offensive coordinator? And he's got his work cut out for him because they got to improve on scoring points. They got to improve on their efficiency, and specifically in the passing game. Now, Kenny Pickett wasn't healthy all year. Arthur Smith does work really well within the running game. He did great things with Derrick Henry. He did great things with Bijan and Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson. So he's coming in, getting Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, who were already a really good 1-2 punch this past season. So they're going to have an opportunity to really improve on that. And they're hoping that his offense is a little bit more creative than what they saw out of Matt Canada. And you want to add pieces that are going to improve the passing game. Kenny Pickett hasn't really been healthy. You know, last year, certainly not. He was benched. There's like this whole thing up in the air of who the quarterback's going to be. I still think Kenny Pickett is the right option. I could see potentially someone like Ryan Tannehill coming in and joining Arthur Smith and reuniting that Tennessee Titans combination that worked so well for Tannehill the first time around, revitalizing his career in Tennessee. So do you dump Mitchell Trubisky or get Tannehill? I think there's something to that, at least, depending on what the price tag is going to be for Tannehill, because I think Tannehill could run... Tannehill's almost like a slightly better version of Kenny Pickett at this point. With a much better arm. But I think Tannehill can run an efficient offense. I don't know that he's a championship quarterback, though. I think those Titans teams were good enough and coached well enough that he probably should have done it, and he didn't do it. Of course, running into Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady and all that is no small task. But I think it would instantly increase your rankings in the passing game. You get more red zone efficiency, I think, with a bigger body quarterback. Third down efficiency, I think his ability to make pre-snap adjustments would be beneficial. I just don't know how he finds his way onto this team. That's the only thing. So I feel like you have to be able to do this with Kenny Pickett, and so it's going to require Arthur Smith to understand Pickett and build the offense around him, because the defense is still a Steelers defense. 6th in points, 5th in red zone efficiency, 3rd in total touchdowns allowed, 3rd in total rushing touchdowns. They did struggle against the pass a little bit. That was them integrating new players. Joey Porter Jr. really became much better later in the season. The sack numbers are great, but they could be better, which is kind of scary. They're almost top 10 in sacks with an underperformance outside of TJ Watt, who was amazing this season. So these are little things they can improve on. Joey Porter Jr. hoping takes that extra step. He started to get there towards the end of the year. Now with an extra training camp, a little bit more studying, a little bit more workouts, a little bit better understanding of the game, you hope he can continue to build on that. And then adding little pieces here or there. We're going to get to a key piece that they can very much add, but they have to do a little bit of cap gymnastics in order to get there. So they are coming in $16 million over the salary cap. Now, they can make some adjustments here with some of their other contracts and move on from some players on this team that are kind of holding them back. And we'll start with who they can bring back as a re-signing. Marcus Golden was great as a rotational guy, and he's going to be a really cheap option for them because of his age, his veteran status, and he's more of a situational player at this point in his career, but he was really solid in his relief status for this team, so I think you can bring him back at a cheap price. I'm getting rid of a cancer in the locker room, and you have to decide between Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, and due to the cap savings, I'm trading Deontay Johnson. Steeler fans may not like it, some will, but there's just something not great about what that room has become in their time together. You hope that you can get one of them out and then the other one will get dialed in. Deontay Johnson, I think, is the best option to get rid of because you get a $10 million cap savings. You can probably get a 3rd round pick for him and a conditional pick in the next year's draft, depending on if the team gives him a contract extension. Then maybe it becomes 2 3rd round picks. If they don't extend him, then maybe it's a 5th round pick for taking on the $10 million. But I think you got to get rid of one of those guys to sort of set an example for the rest of the locker room, because their attitudes are terrible. The laziness that you see, George Pickens not making that block in the run game because it might get absolutely horrific. It's just bad all around, and that's not the type of Steeler culture that's it shouldn't be allowed to be sustained. And speaking of that, you're going to give an extension to your big-time veteran Cam Hayward. I understand it's a little difficult to read, but I'm going to extend him to lower his cap number for this year. So I'm going to give him a 1-year, $15 million extension, $14 million bonus with 2 void years. I'm basically taking his base salary from this year and I'm converting it into a bonus. It's going to lower his cap hit pretty significantly. And it's going to extend him to the age of 36 if he is playing this next season. Perfect. But you're going to end up anticipating lowering his workload anyway with Keanu Benton that you just were able to bring in. And Armon Watts, who had a damn good season, he's going to be maybe somebody that you can upgrade, and we'll get to that in the free agency process. But you're going to restructure TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick to clear up just under $19 million in salary cap. Because you gotta create some room here to make a couple of signings, and then the cuts: Allen Robinson, easy cut, $10 million. Chugwumo Okorafor, $8.7 million, easy cut, and then Mason Cole, $4.8 million, easy cut. Okorafor and Mason Cole were absolutely horrific. Allen Robinson hasn't really contributed. You're paying him $10 million for nothing. You want to rebuild that wide receiver room a little bit, and we can see how we can do that later on. So I've opened up a lot of cap room with those moves. It's going to be $45.7 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers salary cap going into this. So they can make a significant move, and I'm going to make one because they do have some needs out here. They have wide receiver. They have offensive line. The linebacker room outside of Landon Roberts, I think you can use another one. Maybe use two, get like more of a run stuffing specialist and then more of a pass coverage specialist for third downs. I think you can get away with doing that. And then cornerback, Joey Porter was such a great pickup, real steal in the draft. You want to maybe look to add to that room. So I'm making two significant signings on this team on the offense and defensive line. The first one, I'm looking at Chris Jones, and he's going to get a 4-year, $100 million contract with $65 million base, $35 million bonus, with a void year in there to spread out that bonus. That is basically Quinnen Williams' contract. I think it's a little bit more than what Quinnen Williams got, which is the second highest paid interior guy. The first one is Aaron Donald. I don't know that Chris Jones gets to that contract number. He very much could. I just didn't really quite anticipate it. The other one is Coleman Shelton, who had a great year for the Rams. They really had a great little showing there, that offensive line with Kevin Dotson and Coleman Shelton. So it's going to be tough for the Rams to really choose between the two. We've theorized with Kevin Dotson. Now we're going to theorize with if it's Coleman Shelton who gets there. I think the Steelers would jump all over him. 4 years, $48 million deal with a void year in there. I love the void years, man. Clear out the bonuses. Makes him one of the higher paid players at his position. And you hope that it's an upgrade over Mason Cole. It definitely should be. And it drastically improves your offensive line. And then I'm looking at Jeff Okudah. I think you can get him for pretty cheap. 2 years, $12 million total contract. I don't hate the idea of doing this. Jeff Okudah has at the very least been notoriously in his career great in the run game. So you at least would have that you're bringing over. And you hope that through some coaching with a really great defensive coaching staff, really it would be the first great defensive coaching staff he would actually have, that he'd be able to grow and develop. And then you might end up having a bit of a steal there with Okudah and Joey Porter on either side. But I think it's also low risk because at the worst case scenario, Okudah, like I said, does do well in the run game at least. So you could put him in those situations as sort of a relief for maybe a better cover corner in those more traditional running situations. So he can at least maybe be a contributor in that sense. And, a nice, legitimate, fresh start for him, the former number 3 overall pick. I think the risk is definitely worth the reward because it's really low risk at this point. You don't even have to guarantee the whole $12 million. You probably guarantee like $4 million of this contract and have a lot of wiggle room here in case things just go belly up. So I'm not going to shy away from spending the money. You got $10 million left over. The roster is in and of itself still good. And there's enough good players in this draft that fit your needs that you have that you can get quality day one starters in this draft. You're going to have Broderick Jones being your starting tackle. You're going to have, some of these free agent signs, Coleman Shelton there. James Daniels, you're hoping can turn it on from his time in Chicago. So now it's about getting into the draft aspect, and you can do some serious damage if you're Pittsburgh, considering the strengths of this draft. So especially with the getting rid of Deontay Johnson or George Pickens, we got rid of Deontay. I love the idea of the Pittsburgh Steelers going wide receiver in the first round. I don't remember the last time they've done that. Thinking back at the wide receivers they've had, I don't know that they've ever done it in the Mike Tomlin era. But, you got Brian Thomas Jr., you got Keon Coleman there. I'm not saying be overly aggressive and trade up for one, but I am saying take one. I think there's a lot of good options there for you. If you got to move up a couple spots to guarantee yourself wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 in this class, do it. Then on day 2, this is where you're getting your other tackle. In that second wave of tackles, like a Patrick Paul, Kingsley, Jordan Morgan, you can grab yourself one of those guys. Hopefully they'll be there. Again, don't be afraid to move around a little bit. And then you're also going to get another corner in that second wave of cornerback, which it's sort of the cornerback room. You get like those first round guys, and then you sort of hit this lull in the second round. So I think when he gets to the third round, the value of the corners really goes up, and there's a good selection of them. And then on day 3, just look for some value. Fill out the offensive line. Fill out your front 4. Fill out the secondary. Try to find like these little situational weapons that may come around. You got Calvin Austin III out there. Maybe you get somebody else who's more just a straight up red zone threat. Maybe you got a really good tight end room with Washington, Freiermuth, and Hayward. Maybe you're looking for more of a straight up receiving tight end who can be like a big slot receiver in certain situations. I think there's a lot of possibilities here for the Steelers to have a really effective draft yet again. And there you have it. My offseason prediction video for the Pittsburgh Steelers 2024 offseason. Make sure, again, like and comment if you made it this far. And if you made it this far and hit subscribe, that'd be awesome. Those 3 things help this channel out so much. And there's other videos in this series on the other side of my head. We're putting in all the work right now, trying to roll out as many of these videos as possible as we start to get to the combine, get to the draft, and then deep dive series, baby. And I will see you guys with the next video next time.